40 seconds of talking. Thanks for coming.
Sure.
Welcome to Bellingham Voices. I'm Marie Marchand, your host. Today's show is about the Mount Baker Theater, and we have two guests, Brad Burdick and Skip Williams. Brad is the executive director of Mount Baker Theater, and Skip is the president of its board of directors. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
And Brad, we'll start with you.
Sure.
You've been the executive director for 19 years,
Yep.
which is a long time, especially in nonprofit world when there's a lot of turnover for executive directors. So we're really glad that this community has you as a consistent presence. So you're really passionate about the job, and I noticed that even after 19 years. Talk about that passion and also a little bit about your background.
I guess I'm passionate because I love what the theater is to Bellingham and Whatcom County. The job is certainly not a routine job. Every day we've got different things coming in and leaving. We've got 3 different venues. There's lots of things going on, and so there's always something that is different and new and unexpected and non-routine. And I really love that. But I really love that the theater has such an impact on the community, that it's a unique thing that improves the quality of life for Bellingham and Whatcom County. And that's what gets me up in the morning. It's what makes me excited to go to work every day, because I know we're making an impact on making Bellingham be a unique, great place to live.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like you have a lot of energy. It's an energizing job, and it's never a dull moment.
Yeah. I think our whole staff has a lot of energy. I've got a lot of people there that work, and in the entertainment business or in the performing arts, it's not a 9-to-5 job. It's evenings and weekends, and we're also busy throughout the day. Sometimes when we have a show, load in starts at 5 o'clock in the morning, and it doesn't load out until after midnight the next morning. So we can have really long days. And so to be successful, it really does take kind of a drive and a passion to be able to deal with long hours and changing circumstances. But it's interesting because there's always something new coming through the door.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what's your background before that?
I have always been in nonprofit management. I have a business degree, and I've actually got a couple of degrees in management. So I understand how to do budgeting and bookwork and planning and forecasting, and that's really been helpful with the theater. But since I graduated from Oklahoma State, I've worked for the Boy Scouts as a nonprofit organizer, and also went back and worked for the Oklahoma State Alumni Association for a few years before I came back here to Bellingham and became the director of the theater.
Mm-hmm. So the season is underway.
Yep.
What are some of the highlights that you want the viewers to know about?
Oh, we have so many shows. I think you just have to go to our website. It's www.mountbakertheater.com, spelled all the way out. Mm-hmm. And theater is with an R-E. Make sure you look at that. But you can see video clips of everything that's happening this year. We've got lots of headliners. We've got lots of great Broadway shows. We've got some outstanding music acts. If you like guitar music, we've got a couple of shows that are there. We've got some Celtic things that are coming in. We've got some really good dance companies that are coming in. There's just a ton of shows, way too many to talk about in the amount of time we have here today. But go to our website, take a look at all the great things that are happening. When I book a season, I try to get things that a broad variety of people will enjoy. So there's probably going to be some things that people will look at and say, why in the world would I want to go to that? But then they'll see something that's just exactly what they're looking for. And hopefully people will be excited about at least 3 or 4 of the shows that we have on the season.
Mm-hmm. Great. And so Skip, tell us about your journey with the Mount Baker Theater.
My journey with the Mount Baker Theater. It's a wonderful journey, first of all. I was asked to join the board about 4 years ago. I think it was 4 years, something like that. And no, actually it was 5 years ago. But when they first asked me, I couldn't do it because I just didn't have the time. But I told them, give me a year and I will be there. And 1 year, and 5 minutes later, they call me again. You know, and one of the things that I totally enjoy about being on this board of directors first is that it's really, for me, has been a real confluence of everything that I'm all about, because I'm a musician, my kids are actors, my son is a fine artist, he does murals and things like that, and for me to be able to be involved in an organization that supports the arts like this is, in my lifetime, has been wonderful. I've been on a lot of non-profit boards that have done various things for the community, not only here, but from Tacoma, where I come from. And this has been the one that's been the most intriguing for me, because it fits with my sense of being an artist and so on, as well as providing this wonderful resource to the community.
Mm-hmm. You were part of starting a pilot program last year that has to do with fundraising for local school programs. Can you tell us about that? Well,
it's called the Cash Back for Kids. And I was made aware of it, and then I kind of jumped on it to help one of the two of the high schools in the city last year with one of the performances, and that was Bellingham High School in Squalicum. And it was a performance by the Glenn Miller Band, and I thought it would be interesting for the kids in the jazz band to experience seeing a professional level band like that. Mm-hmm. And so I talked with our marketing director, and she's the one that made me aware of it. And then I just said, okay, draw me up something I can take to these two high schools and see how it works. And I was totally surprised when a good number of students from Squalicum High School came out and actually saw this big band perform. And then the program then gives 10% of the ticket price back to their booster club. Mm-hmm. to raise funds for their activities. Oh, I see. Mm-hmm. And now this year we're doing a somewhat larger effort with the Wynton Marsalis show next month, where we've expanded that concept to all of the county high schools. Mm-hmm. So, and one of my tasks next week is to start calling these band directors and say, hey, we'd like you to come and watch the open rehearsal and explain the program and expose those music students to what it's like to be a professional musician.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that sounds great. That reminds me of a conversation you and I were having about the impact of Mount Baker Theater on the economy as a whole. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we did some research and actually realized that the Mount Baker Theater annually has a direct economic impact of well over $6 million. Mm-hmm. In addition to the direct expenses that we have with our budget and all of the staff that we pay to keep things going. If you look at what the average expenditures that our patrons make when they come to shows, before the show and after the show, it averages well more than $6 million every year. And that's a huge impact on the Arts District and Bellingham and even Whatcom County.
Mm-hmm. That's impressive.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask both of you what your favorite show all time is that's been at Mount Baker Theater.
Oh, boy.
You go first.
Oh, boy. Well, one of my favorites is obviously, well, not obviously, but I've seen Wynton Marsalis perform here now. Mm-hmm. This will be 4 times. Mm-hmm. And I've seen his brother Branford and all of that. So my favorite shows are the ones that really feature musicians and music, although I have seen some others that I really like.
Well, he stole mine because I'm an old trumpet player, and so Wynton Marsalis is my hero, and I've never heard a better trumpet player. But I'd rather talk about some of the other really unique shows that we've had. We actually had a show one year that was from Moscow. They had a ballet on ice, and we actually brought ice machines in onto the stage. We turned the stage into a skating rink, and they put the refrigeration units down, bolted them all together, made a platform on top of our stage, and we had a stagehand with a water hose that came in all night long spraying water over these refrigeration units until it built up a 6-inch slab of ice on the stage. And then they had it looked kind of like a snow shovel that they had sharpened so they could shave the ice and make it smooth and flat. And we got to see this great ballet on ice. And then after the show, we actually let people come up from the public, and they got to skate on the Mount Baker Theater stage. And then we had about 15 stagehands to get rid of the ice. We actually had to super freeze it. They turned it up so it was really cold and brittle, and the stagehands brought in their sledgehammers and actually broke the ice up into chunks, and we pushed it out into the alley and let it melt out in the alley. So we had a pile of ice for a couple of weeks out in the side of the theater. But it was a great experience. Another really good show was Cirque Oise. They did a performance. It's probably the best artistic show that I've ever seen. Incredible. What they did was snapshots. They would start with a photograph, and then they would take the photograph, create the same image on the stage, and then they would tell the backstory that led up to the photograph. And the title of the show was Rain. And so the thing that made it so unique is all of the photographs had to do with having fun in the rain. And the grand finale was actually where they had a 1,000-gallon tank of water on the side of the stage, and they siphoned it up to our fly system, started sprinkling and raining. And what the audience didn't know is that we had, before the show started, we actually built a dam that covered the entire outside edge of the stage, and made about a 6-inch deep pool with plastic, lined it with sand, and then covered it with plastic, so that as it started raining harder and harder and harder, and the water kept coming down. The audience was looking, well, how in the world that's going to flood the stage? And pretty soon there was 4 or 5 inches worth of water. So with that much water, the actors could actually take surfboards, and they were pulling each other around on the stage in surfboards in a very Cirque sort of way. And it was absolutely incredible, because it was something nobody in Bellingham had ever seen on the Mount Baker Theater stage. It was a pool of water, that thick. So it was really incredible, very memorable show.
Well, you guys definitely took my idea, because Wynton Marsalis is my favorite too. And I had the pleasure of meeting him back when I was 20 years old. And he's a very, very sweet man, very kind. And it's important for him to go into particularly low-income schools and make sure that their music programs are sustained, make sure that the kids are involved in music. And he shares his passion and his joy about music with young students, and that's always been really impressive.
Yeah, that's one of the things that has totally impressed me about him, is that not only that, but he seeks out the local musicians where he performs. I mean, after he's done a show, and this has happened in Bellingham now, the 3 times that he's been here, after the show, he goes and finds where the local guys are playing and sits in with them for a while. And it is just phenomenal to think that you can sit and watch someone of such stature just be just like you and I sitting here and hanging out. And he shares his knowledge and shares some of his skills, and it's just marvelous.
Yeah, he's one of the few performers who allows groups of students to come in and sit in during his sound check. They actually watch him perform sound check, and he usually takes some time to talk to them. Once in a while, he even will pull people up out of the audience that's watching the sound check to let them play his trumpet or And he's actually coming this fall. He's coming October the 14th, in case you're watching this before that time. He's just a phenomenal, an icon for America. And he really does love to spread jazz and to get people connected to jazz, to keep it alive and keep it fresh, and it's part of his mission. The Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra that travels with him is also made up of just an amazing array of musicians that are phenomenal in their own right, but they always play with him when he's traveling on the road. It's a great show.
I think they're some of the best jazz musicians in the world.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Skip, tell us about board leadership. You've been on a few different boards in this community. You're known for contributing in that way. Tell us a little bit about what it's like to be on a board and what draws you to that kind of leadership role.
Well, initially what draws me to those kinds of things is the way I was raised. My parents raised me with the fundamental attitude that you always have to contribute something to make the world or your community a better place, so to speak. And ever since I became an adult, I had done things as a teenager and a college student, but when I really began my adult life after college and moving back to Tacoma, I just followed those values, and I've been on boards for daycare centers and crisis services and a city club, and each one of those organizations, I've always participated in them when they were going through a period of growth and change to make what they were doing more relevant and more connected to the community that they were serving. And now that I'm on this board, for me, it's like the best of all worlds because it fits in with my arts background, it fits in with my community background, and we are now going through a period now where we're kind of rebuilding our relationship to the Bellingham community in a new and exciting way, just connecting with our supporters and our contributors in a way that we hope will lead us to a more community sustainable organization down the road.
And I'd imagine part of that has to do with fundraising.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So I wanted to ask Brad, how are you funded?
Sure. Well, the theater gets its funding from a variety of sources, but it is very definitely a nonprofit organization. It's managed by the board of directors, and there's a professional staff that works to do what the board directs it to do. And so we have about 60% on average of our revenue comes from the ticket sales. So when you go and purchase a ticket, it doesn't actually pay for everything that it takes to put that show on. If we charge the real cost, you'd have to add another 40 or 50% on top of what you're actually paying for the tickets. So we generate a lot of revenue from other sources. We have sponsorships, we have memberships, we have people that are just contributors that write a check every year to us to support what we're doing. And we also receive a management fee from the city to help offset some of our costs. That's about 10% of our total operational budget. Over time, what we're trying to do is to diversify all of our revenue streams so that about 50% comes from the ticket revenue side of the equation, and the other 50% comes from all of the other sources, whether they're grants or donations or contributions or memberships. That makes it a lot easier for us to handle the really volatile business of entertainment. The business seems to be changing over time with performing artists. A lot of them that used to make a lot of money off of record or CD sales have lost a lot of that income, and so it's a lot more important for them to get revenue on their live performances. So that has had an effect on changing the complexity of the deals that we have to negotiate with the artists. So it's a lot different than it used to be 15 or 20 years ago. And I see that trend continuing. So that's why I think long term we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to expand all of our revenue streams, not just through ticket revenue, and continue to keep the prices as low as we possibly can for people that want to come see shows at the Mount Baker Theater.
And if I could add something to that too, from my viewpoint, I want this community to understand and recognize what a gem they have sitting right here in the city of Bellingham.
Yep.
I've seen a lot of cities and towns that don't have anything near what we have in terms of the facility that we have here. And what that does to bring artists like Winton, or a year and a half ago or a couple of years ago, Steve Martin, who after his performance here tweeted on or sent out something on Facebook commenting on what a marvelous facility we have. It was wonderful.
We get that from almost every artist. They walk in and they see the dome and they see those arches lit up, and they're just amazed because they play hundreds of venues around the country, and there's very few historic movie palaces that are still in really good shape. They play a lot of old movie palaces that have been turned into performing arts centers, but most of them aren't anywhere as well preserved as what we have with the Mount Baker Theater. It's because we've got so much support across the community to make sure that this place stays here active and thriving for more generations.
That's exciting. So scan the horizon for us and let us know what's ahead for the MBT.
Well, we're always looking for how we can have a bigger impact on the community. And one of the things that we've tried for the last few years is to produce our own shows. So that's kind of unique to most performing arts centers in the Northwest. If you're doing the traditional shows that come in and set up and then they go out the next day, do one or two performances and leave, that in the industry that's called a roadhouse, and that's typically what we're known as. But to produce our own shows where we hire the actors and we build the sets and we actually produce the shows, it takes a whole little additional layer of complexity to make that happen. So for the last 10 years or so, we've been trying to do that in various ways, and we haven't quite figured out how to make it really sustainable and really grow it to the levels we want. And I think this year we're taking a good look at that, trying to study it and figure out how to make that work. And I think going forward, in some way, that's going to be a part of what we do in our operations.
And just to tag off of what he says, when he talks about us producing our own shows, the piece that goes with that is producing our own shows at a very high professional level,
Right.
so that it'll be on par with these road shows that come in. And we've had some of those, and the audience could not tell the difference between the ones that we did and the ones that were on the road and all of that. So the quality of the show is a big goal to get to for us.
Yeah, I think because I've been there for so long now, it seems like I've got a perspective. I remember the theater being much smaller than it is now. A much smaller budget, a lot fewer shows. We didn't have the Walton Theater, we didn't have the Encore Room, and over time we've really stabilized and grown because of the support that we've had. And as we've done that, we've become more of a regional leader in performing arts. So we have a tagline, we now call ourselves the hub of entertainment in the Northwest, which I think is accurate. And the more that we're successful, then the more we're able to do for other organizations in the community. We have a new program that we started about 3 years ago called the Community Spaces Program. And so if anybody has a nonprofit organization that is performing arts related, they can actually use the Encore Room absolutely free. They can do a performance, or they can have a board meeting, or they can come in and do rehearsals. If it's available, we'll give it to them for free. And we want to do that as a way of bolstering performing arts, because there's a lot of challenges with performing arts. The budgets in the schools are tight. Sometimes that's maybe one of the first things that gets cut whenever there's a tight budget year. And we think it's important that we can do what we can to keep performing arts alive, and to get the next generation to learn how to play piano, or learn how to play trumpet.
Yeah, learn how to play trumpet,
or be willing to perform, and to dance, or to act. All of those things are important. So the Community Spaces program helps with that. And I think as we continue to grow, and we'll do more things that will help lead the way in the Arts District and in Bellingham and in downtown, to make Bellingham a place where the arts are appreciated.
Wonderful.
And part of showing the community, I think that at least a large part of the people that I work with and see, they see the big splash, which is the shows that we put on. And that is their only impression of the theater. And just what, Brad has said, it's much larger than just that. I mean, we do things for the community. We do things like the program he was talking about of local productions. We use local talent for that rather than nationwide or something like that. We use the talent that's already within our reach. And there, believe me, there's a lot of it here. And the community in a lot of ways doesn't see that way. And so part of our mission, at least part of my mission with this, at least it's a self-imposed mission, is to let the community know we are bigger than just doing these big shows like Wynton Marsalis and all of that. We use that to support all the other things we do.
Yeah, we have Alton Brown coming in. If people watch TV and they like the cooking channel, they'll know Alton Brown. He's coming in. We've got Mamma Mia.
Yes,
that's
again.
Another huge Broadway show that's coming in. But we do. That's part of what we do. But we also, one of the people that was a part-time ticket rep tried out and auditioned for one of the shows that we had on the main stage that we produced, and he actually is now on Broadway performing in the Book of Mormon as one of the regulars on the Book of Mormon. So he's made it on Broadway, and he made it there because of the experiences
what he did here.
He was able to have at the Mount Baker Theater.
Wow.
So we really do try to hit a lot of different aspects of the performing arts.
Well, that's wonderful. I hope this show can help spread the word about the other things that you're doing. And thank you for being on the show. Just to close, I have a question that I ask everybody, and it's, what's your favorite thing to do in Bellingham? So what do you think? I'll put you on the spot first.
Well, my favorite thing to do right now.
And you better say, go to the Mount Baker Theater.
Well, that's number one.
Absolutely. We're always at the Mount Baker Theater.
I have three things. That, and believe me, in the term of my presidency, I lived there. Playing music the way that I do. I'm in concert bands, and I also play professionally, and teaching kids how to play music.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. How about you, Brad?
And for me, I am at the theater an awful lot, so that's the number one thing. But when I get away from that, I love to ride bikes, so I actually ride all over the county and even down into Skagit and up into Canada. Do a lot of that. And one of my biggest hobbies is woodworking. So I've just purchased a lathe that I'm learning how to turn bowls and turn all sorts of things with that. So that's kind of an interesting outlet for me to. This job is a very interactive job. I'm around people constantly, and so sometimes more solitary things when I get away from the world is relaxing for me. And so those are the things that I do.
Wonderful.
You know, golf works that way
Golf
too.
works that way too, yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today for Bellingham Voices. We really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.